So, guys, today I just recently made a video that was smaller, and excuse me, I ate a lot of food recently. But now with this ability to make reaction videos, I don't know if it will make any money or if it will make me have a very big presence. But I wanted to do something a little bit bigger and more ambitious. I already talked about and laughed at that, but I want to have a little bit more of a conversation on something that I've kind of always thought was interesting. This is a video talking about the film The Works and a lot of Pixar alumni who would revolutionize the animation industry. And it's one of the most interesting videos I've ever seen, personally. It's very interesting. It's very cool. I'm kind of talking on my butt, but I don't really want a script here. I want to do it myself without AI or without anything. This isn't a moneymaker. It's a video of fun and passion. And am I going to release this right immediately as it comes out? No. This is just going to be a reaction as of right now. Not, maybe I'll release it later in the week, but I am just making this on maybe Friday. But here's something interesting that I wanted to react to. Enjoy, ladies and gentlemen, as I talk about The Works or look at it and analyze it. So it's pretty advanced, I have to say. Turning it down a bit. Side The Works. So cool.
Good evening. I'm William Shatner. And
William Shatner and Disney. Now, my dad really loves Epcot. He loves Epcot of all the parks because he has a lot of nostalgia for it, and it's very 80s of a park. He doesn't really like the old Star Trek and finds it dated of as is, but my grandpa really does on my dad's side, and my grandpa on my dad's side, and my grandpa on my mom's side love Star Trek.
behind me is Spaceship Earth, the symbol of Walt Disney World Epcot Center, the symbol of the future. Millions of us come here every year to see what the future might be like. Tonight, we're going to take off from here and show you how close to home the future really is. Oh, you'll still be driving a car, but the car may be telling you how to get where you're going.
A lot of cars can do that right now.
There'll still be sports, but computers may be building super athletes. Doctors will still be performing
They've already kind of done it with the Robot Olympics.
operations, but the scalpels may be made of pure light. And as
I mean, they aren't wrong in a lot of ways. Scalpels aren't made of pure light, but we do have gaming controllers that can screw into your vertebrae.
for entertainment, we'll still be going to the movies, but special effects of tomorrow may make everything you've seen so far seem like part of the distant past. Let's take a look. Across the country, at the New York Institute of Technology's Computer Graphics Lab, special effects for movies and television are
And all that computer work for things that are probably on your iPhone or on this laptop right now. It's all kind of crazy that your brain could, like that, all this probably took so much time, so much effort, so much passion put towards something like this.
taking a giant leap into the future. The Computer Graphic Lab's biggest project is the world's first all-computer-generated feature film.
And in our universe, we had Toy Story, but there's an alternate universe where we could have had The Works. Now, this film was never released to the public. It's kind of interesting because it was dreamed of as a possible future involving robots, and the idea of it being a robot future, which we kind of did with WALL-E, but this was robots taking over the Earth, and more of a interesting, it's just different compared to what we end up getting, a story about toys compared to this. It would not be until maybe like 10 years later we'd get something like this, but the effort and passion all those people at NYT had is immaculate and unimaginable to something like this today.
It's called The Works, and it's about a planet run by robots. Although it's going to take at least another year and a half to complete, this top-secret project is expected to revolutionize what you'll be seeing in movie theaters in the future.
Also, is it weird I like the CGI of the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and everything else, and that as time has gone by, CGI looks worse and worse? It's like a degradation. I wasn't a big fan of Hoppers, honestly, when I watched it, but it felt like a downgrade from the usual Pixar material. Am I crazy, or is that just me?
Dynadigit Datavac, an entertainment subcompany of Handstrand. Dynadigi Datavac, an entertainment subcompany of Pan's Transcore, presents 3DV.
Hello, humans! Welcome back to 3DV, the first and only all-robot network programming system.
We are so glad you could tune back in with us today after so long off the air. Today we'll be going inside the works. We consider it one of our siblings.
That's right, Dot. In 1974, at the New York Institute of Technology, college president Alexander Shore founded the Computer Graphics Lab, a facility just for computer animation.
And that's crazy that he was even, like, before all of Pixar and everything else, that this guy hired a bunch of these people at this pink mansion, as they're going to reveal in the video. And I think it was really interesting and fascinating as it went on, how it's just a very good documentary, and I like it a lot.
Then, doing animation with computers was completely unheard of, but we're happy to bring you some of the people from that lab to tell you firsthand how they built it.
Alex had a mysterious wealth at his disposal and was always looking for new ways to use it to improve education and make his mark on the world.
But we've told you enough about our Uncle Alex. Here's Ed Catmull to tell you the rest.
He started a studio before he
And it's crazy we got Ed Catmull, one of the leading people who did a CG hand in the 70s, and they got him for this video. It's crazy.
got us. It was a legitimate studio. They said they didn't have the right kind of talent for it. It was a legitimate studio. They made a movie. But he was willing to fund something and believe that something was there that others didn't. So he was remarkable for that. It's a funny kind of legacy, because the legacy is he did something that nobody else would do at the time. And the only negative was he wasn't the complete package. Well, who could be at that time?
Times when you're real down and...
This is a very cool movie, I have to say. Raggedy Ann and Andy, A Musical Adventure. Even though it is about a doll, it's the craziest movie I've ever seen. I love it. It's very insane. And it probably is not... It's not as crazy as some of the other films, like something like Mind Game or something. That might be just more of a adult movie, but with a lot of adult imagery. But we're gonna say this is a very acid trip movie. This definitely feels like in the 70s. 100% that.
Every lonely place I go, there's a way I always know. We're always together.
This year is 50 years that I was working on a traditional animated film called Raggedy Ann and Andy, and that was in New York City. And I'm sitting there drawing the old-fashioned way. The most technologically advanced thing we got was like an electric pencil sharpener. And we said, there's a bunch of guys out in Long Island, at a computer lab, and they're trying to make an animated feature with a computer. And we all just kind of looked at each other like, that's weird. That's like trying to draw with a missile. You can make cartoons with a computer. But that's like how audacious it was at the time. He was an entrepreneur. He was a self-made millionaire. He saw the system and everything and tried to work with it. In that time period, it was a thing of the Disney brand had fallen aside.
Robin Hood.
And, well, I feel that Disney brands are falling aside in this modern era. I don't think Robin Hood is as bad as it was at the time. It's a lot of weird decisions, but I don't think it's like that bad of a film. It's interesting. I don't really think like the idea is just a simpler time frame, and everyone was like, "Oh, it just wasn't as good as what Disney was making at the time." Which to me, everyone looks at those time frames where Disney wasn't as good as it is now. It's kind of like 2000s and everything, where it kind of is. We're in this era of time where I don't feel like Disney is quite at the peak of their game. Not in the same sense as other things. People in that space will say that it is in this time, but not in the same way as it is now. And it's not like in the 90s with Beauty and the Beast and everything like that, or early Pixar where I grew up as a little boy. It's more so we're in this kind of transitional period with a lot of these adults. And it's probably my generation who's going to have to eventually make more better animated movies.
Marion, my love. And all Sherwood Forest celebrated characters.
I had a friend who worked for Disney merchandising in New York, and he said we're getting our asses kicked by Sesame Street and Charlie Brown, Snoopy stuff. So there was that vacuum there, and I think Shore at one point thought it would be.
And this is crazy also. I'm sorry I keep pausing, but there's just so much notes to go over and so much like stuff to be fed that you can't really just be like, oh well, this can just go. So that it's just funny because Sesame Street and Charlie Brown were beating out Disney. I mean, this is before the 80s. In the 80s, it was the Care Bears beating out Disney. A lot of other companies have beat out Disney throughout the years. It's not like Disney has been the only source. Don Bluth at the time did too in the 80s. There's a lot of things, and this short Tubby the Tuba is going to be very interesting because a lot of it is going to be very, very, very like it's early CGI animation. It's crazy digital 2D animation from that era of time when it's a foreign concept then, but by the 90s it was so popular at the time. Now you don't even blink an eye when you see it. It's not even digital animation anymore. It's all CG.
It would be interesting to try to do an animated feature and to be like the next Walt Disney.
Ladies and gentlemen of the orchestra, I know I'm only a fat little tuba. Fat little tuba, fat little tuba, fat little tuba, fat little tuba.
Also, this is super acid trippy.
But that's no reason to laugh at me, is it?
Nah, screw those guys.
Alex started with developing a feature-length adaptation of Tubby the Tuba, a novelty record from 1945. While this project was being traditionally animated, Alex was introduced to something else, computer animation.
After being shown Ed Cap named the Gary House.
It was a wonderful, wonderful place. It was beyond belief. I'm a kid that grew up in New Mexico, small town New Mexico. And here I find myself on the fabulous North Shore of Long Island. Great Gatsby land. We had all these names for it. Los Ricos National Forest. Just mansion after mansion after mansion. And I lived in a mansion, and I worked in a mansion, and I did video in another mansion, and my girlfriend lived in another mansion. I wake up every morning and say, what? This can't be real.
What else job could do that? I could never even imagine any other job doing it. But that is a very 80s thing to happen, I have to say.
This is a movie. And I had to pinch myself and say, no, this is actually happening.
New York Tech's flagship campus was developed on the sites of former Gold Coast estates, and is considered one of the most beautiful in the East. The charm of many original buildings has been carefully preserved, and modern buildings are grouped in low clusters, surrounded by trees and open vistas.
There was a property with a mansion called Holloway House, and it was empty. And when the lab started, before I got there, each person had their own room. It was free rent. I didn't live in Holloway House. By the time I got there, it was kind of full up. Because they ran out of space, they rented a house in Glen Cove for a few other people, including Bill Maher, me, and Paul Alexander Jr. was living with us for a while.
It was marvelous. And Alex Schur was crazy enough that he he funded us better than anybody else in the world. We had the best computer graphics laboratory in the world. And he never asked us to justify it, right? He just paid for it. And I come back to move out to New York to be there. And I'm so excited. I'm telling my roommates about this man I just met. He says, Alvy, I've been trying to tell you, that's my uncle. So, yeah, we called him Uncle Alex the whole time we were there. Not to his face, we called him Alex to his face. Everybody else called him Dr. Sure, but we called him Uncle. We called him Alex. So Uncle Alex, he would wander. He was a crazy man. He would wander in. He didn't talk like you and I are talking. It's kind of an exchange. He would just come in talking, just stream of consciousness. Yeah. And I finally realized that what you did is you just start talking too. I just start talking. And after a while, if I heard my words come out of his stream of words, then I knew that the thought must have transferred. David.
Well, as a person who's been in therapy, I have to say, the fact is there's a way of like talking, and I guess everything he was saying, I guess it's just all expression. Like describe, express, assert, reinforce. I guess it was just all express and assertion, I guess. That's one way of talking.
Call it word salad. We're the best in the world, right? Right, Alex, we're the best in the world. How do we stay out there? How do we stay best? And I said, well, if you get me 2 more of these 8-bit frame buffers, which cost $80,000 each at the time. If you give me 2 more of these, we can gang them together to make 24-bit pixels. And I explained to him that how 24 bits is 16 million colors versus 8 bits, which is only 256 colors. Well, about 3 weeks later, he shows up, again, just, oh, by the way, I bought you 5 more of those frame buffer 8-bit things, so you'd have 2 of those 24-bit things. Just like that. We were by far the best outfit in the world. We had the first 24 bits, and we went nuts making RGB this, RGB that. Ed and I invented the alpha channel because we had all this memory lying around, and we could think a 4th channel. Why not?
For the humans out there who might not understand that computer jargon, a frame buffer is the computer's memory for holding a complete image.
He's right. Without a frame buffer, you wouldn't be able to see us. The more frame buffers...
That's cool. That's a cool thing. Well, I think the frame buffers are really good now. I just think the imagery is just not as good as something like this. It's weird. The older it looks, the better it looks. Not saying that the newer stuff is bad. I just think there's like a missing joy to it. There's something lost now about the CGI now.
First, the more color and the more detail.
Amazing.
And it's just because we were blessed with riches. I think what he really wanted to do was just plug in a machine and have dollar bills printed out the other end. While I was still at Utah, I said, well, who should I talk to when I get there? And somebody said, well, there's this kid, Ed Camel's just been hired there to run the place. I said, now everybody said, be really careful. He's a hardcore Mormon. I said, no problem. I grew up Southern Baptist. I know religious people. I can talk the talk.
I'm not sure where he originally came by it, but he wanted to start a studio, and he hired a couple of people who used to work in animation. And when I got there, I shared the office with him. And then when Alvy came, the 4 of us were in it. Johnny Gentililla, I think that's the name of one of them. Quite an older one. So he's back from this old school back when they were many years ago. One of the things he said, one of the lessons of animation is that the only thing that should move on the screen are the things where you want the eye to focus. Now, I knew at the time that he was wrong, but I thought it was interesting.
I mean, he isn't totally wrong. The idea behind it, I would say, is that you can do that as a piece of something, not the whole package.
That was the view coming out of kids' animation. But anyway, they were fun guys to be with for that time we were doing planning. And then they were moved over to the house where they were working on the film. And And at that point, we remodeled that bottom floor of the building we were in to be a basically computer floor all the way across it, and then cut in half so the computers would be on one side, and then we would be on the other. And we started off with PDB-11s before finally going up to a 11780. I don't know if these names mean anything to you. These are older computers. The research lab was...
This is more niche of computers were more niche back then.
Other than being on the school property, you really would not say that it was part of the school. And other than my teaching, I think twice I taught a class, I don't think anybody ever taught there.
This eccentric millionaire Alex Sure, he had a number of pet projects that he tried to start at IIT.
The Interactive Technologies Lab, the Center for Lasers, Optics, and Holography, the Center for Robotics Research, the Video Center, the world-renowned Computer Graphics Lab.
I mean, it just fell out of the sky that this guy wanted to hire.
One of the lab's earliest accomplishments was Alvy Smith's Paint 3 program, the first fully RGB digital paint system. Intended to be used by any artist without a background in computers, Paul Zander, first hired as a background artist on Tubby the Tuba, was able to illustrate amazing work.
We began by first developing a paint system, an electronic paint system which could paint with 68 billion colors, an incredible number, almost beyond the human imagination.
It looks so pretty.
Painting with a computer and an electronic pen can save artists days, weeks, sometimes even months of painstaking labor. But that's just the beginning of what the computer can do.
The Tween animation system, developed by Ed Catmull at New York Institute of Technology, is a two-dimensional computer animation system based on interpolation of animators' drawings. The system takes drawings as input and transforms from one to another, thus generating animated cartoons.
The truth was, no one had the least bit of interest and wouldn't have put a nickel into this. So Alex is the only one to do it, and Alex knows nothing about making films. And he's making this film, Tubby the Tuba, and he told the animators that when the computer guys are done, he won't be needing the artist anymore. Now we're just shrinking. Oh my God, don't say that. It's not true. But in order for this, to test the software that I was working on, which was Tween, I needed somebody to use it. Well, none of the animators wanted to use it. So all I could get was an in-betweener. His name was Jamie, forgetting Jamie's last name. He later went and worked at Disney. He was excited to use the computer because over at the studio, he was the in-betweener. He was everybody's, people he had to do work for other people.
In-betweeners are always cool people. A lot of good animators and directors have come from being in-betweeners.
Now he could have the computer do the in-betweening for him. So he was excited about it.
All manipulations, in-betweening, inking, and painting are assisted or performed automatically by the computer.
And then his work was sent over for us to try. It's okay, now we're going to try some work. They would try to sabotage the effort by sending over something which was due in a couple of days. So they give it to us, and the next day they say, we have to have it back because it's due. And that's intentional. I knew exactly what was going on.
Alex would come into the lab and very frequently and say, well, can you make Tubby dance yet? Because he was hoping that we would be able to do some stuff on Tubby the Tuba before he finished production. And there were a couple of tests for things on Tubby the Tuba, but nothing ever made it into the final production from that.
Alvy and I had worked out how to do fill paint for anti-alias lines, and we'd written a couple of papers together. But meanwhile, they were working on Tubby the Tuba, and so there was this question of, can we fill in the frames? And the problem with scanning in a hand-drawn image is that it's noisy. So Garland said he wanted to try it for a cell paint program. And I told him I didn't think it would work because that the noise would screw things up. Garland was determined to prove that I was wrong, and he did. And
That's crazy. Good on that man. I mean, like, you have to do so much of that. So much effort, so much pushing. People are going to push you, and then you got to push back. Good on him. That style is so cool.
I thought, well, that was really cool. It was like he was more determined to make it work once I told him that I didn't think it would work.
And it was, much quicker than actually painting. I mean, at the time, they had done this production of Tubby the Tuba in traditional cell animation, and, started to slowly, gradually move over to the computer graphics lab and soft cell approach, like digital still.
I think originally Dr. Schur had this guy named Singer who was directing on Tubby the Tuba, and Singer was a local New York director who had done a bunch of like low budget TV.
Only one way to stop this, Chief, and that's to put the frog back in jail where he can't cause any trouble.
And
I mean, very simple. Very simple time, very simple animation.
He and Schur
Bob Kane cartoon.
Clashed early on, because Schur had a lot of opinions, and Singer wasn't having any of it. So Singer wound up backing away from the process, and then Schur said, "Well, I'm going to direct it myself." When they had a screening of Tubby the Tuba, and as the movie was ending, one of the animators stood up in the crowd and said, "I just put 2 years of my life in this thing."
Oh my God. Wow. Holy crap. Good on him.
So Alex came in basically every day saying he does not want to be the new Walt Disney. He's completely obsessed with being Walt Disney. It's all I could think about. So he just kept saying he didn't want to be the new Walt Disney. But the whole reason for coming there, I'd say for all of us, was that we wanted to make films. That's the reason I went there. It's the reason I wanted to do it back when I left the University of Utah. But I knew that we had a long ways to go. Moore's Law was well known at that time.
The original Moore's Law came out of an article I published in 1965. I was given the chore of predicting what was going to happen in silicon components for the next 10 years. So I looked at what we were doing in integrated circuits at that time, and we had about doubled every year in the number of components we could put on a chip. And one of my friends, Dr. Carver Mead, professor at Caltech, dubbed this Moore's Law. So the original one was doubling every year in complexity. Now, in 1975, I had to go back and revisit this. So then I changed it to looking forward would only be doubling every couple of years. And that was really the two predictions I made.
So I knew we had a long ways to go, and that we had a lot of things to solve. And there was the opportunity to tackle these problems one at a time. And so I wrote several renderers while I was there. We had a lot of people came from Utah. So Lance obviously came from Utah. Lance is extremely creative, pretty much kind of a butterfly in the way he thought, sort of jumped from thing to thing. Lance was not as technical as others coming in. His degree was in English, as you know, but there was something about him that they brought him into the program. And to say he was extremely creative, he talked with a lot of different people. He put things together and ideas together.
Lance was the closest thing to a rival I've had in my life. And I mean
all those animations from the 70s. That's crazy.
That in a good sense. It's like he and I we would compete on everything, but in every case it made me better and made him better. Like he would sketch and I would sketch. Always sketching. Well, he would sketch and I'd try to out-sketch him. I couldn't, by the way. He was a really good sketcher.
I think the first production we did was called Measure for Measure. It was supposed to be a propaganda or educational film for the metric system. I think that was the first that got finished.
meter, the liter, and the gram.
Something we don't use in America at all. In the 70s, they tried to push it back then, but it just has never caught on over in measurements in America. It's never caught on. It's too foreign of a concept to be in America. It's not American enough of a measurement.
Yeah, there were a couple of animators that were very excited about the computer approach to these things. Puss in Boots, I don't know if that was ever a complete production. I think it was just mostly test stuff with some test characters. I don't think it was a full production.
It had the face of a donkey and the tail of a cat. It had the hair of a monkey and the wings of a bat. And it ranted and it raved and it babbled like a brook.
What was it?
I don't know.
The system was promoted, as I remember. The system was promoted, it was called Images. They had a display in the, more like a showroom in the lobby of the Chrysler Building in Manhattan.
It's taken years of software development to make the Images digital paint system a totally new dimension in artistic expression and creative control. It's incredibly sophisticated, but so easy for an artist to use. Take the electronic pen in your hand. The system responds instantly. You pick a brush by moving it over the list of options located on the menu display. There are dots of every size that make lines of every width. And clusters. And stars.
Each of us had a great deal of freedom to, not like 100% do whatever we wanted, but maybe 80%.
I don't see animation as surreal as this, now. It's not surreal or interesting, there's just a vibe, I think, that you just don't get now with CGI, and, all of it's cool, Spider-Verse, everything, but you don't get anything surreal like this in the modern era. Definitely not something like this now.
And some of us, I think, took more advantage of the freedom we had than others.
Computer graphics can be anything. In fact, it can be
a donkey, a monkey, a gopher, a sofa, a seal, a wheel, an eel, a mule, an ox, a box, a fox, a lox.
I love this. It's so awesome.
Socks, 4 rocks, an engine that knocks, a toad, a road, a whale, a nail, an easel, a weasel, a duck, a buck, a minx, a sphinx, a lynx, a rings, a rose with thorns, a spider with thorns, an ape and a callus, a grape and a palace, a shape of some paper, a moose, a goose, a bat, a rat, a hat, a cat, even that.
And Jim Clark came out and joined us, and he had a major blow up with Alex, because Alex was definitely a character. He'd say things that didn't make any sense, and that was hard for Jim to take. And so you ended up with this. It turned out to be a pretty major blow up.
He's the guy that taught me 3D, by the way. He had already mastered 3D. Almost immediately, he and Alex Schur snorted at each other and started pawing the earth. And it was kind of clear to Jim immediately that this wasn't going to work. Jim was had an entrepreneurial streak in him. Alex Schur, the rest of us didn't. We were nerds. We weren't entrepreneurs. Alex, who was an entrepreneur, Alex Schur, saw this. In a moment, he knew this guy was an entrepreneur, a competitor, a rival, right? So he distrusted him from the get-go, and Jim immediately picked up on this, that this wasn't going to work. Jim had started sending messages to places like Stanford trying to find the next job, because he knew this was not going to go. Alex Schur, who didn't have an electronic bone in his body, comes waving a printout of one of these messages in front of Jim's eyes and fired him on the spot. accusing him of trying to steal the technology of New York.
Ooh. Yeah, Alex was not a perfect. He gave a lot access to a lot of things, but dude was not perfect.
And take it with him to this other place. It was not. It was bogus, and we all knew it. For one thing, there was nothing to steal. It was everything we did was you could go to SIGGRAPH and learn it.
In any case, the one thing that we did do early on was that we decided to publish everything that we did. Part of it is coming out of an academic background. That's what you did do. But I realized pretty quickly that if we published everything, then we get more notice. It'd be easy for us to hire. And so we had that policy there. Alex did not object to it. He wasn't saying keep everything secret here. There are people like at III and others who were also wanting to make feature films. We weren't the only ones that had this dream. But they tried to keep their algorithm secret. As you may know, we started a commercial group while I was there. So we were starting to do commercials and to make them and getting the experience. So the idea was to figure out how to do something bigger to make some money doing this. So that was the start. And that continued on after I left to make the commercials.
LifeSavers loved CGI. They still do. It's just a very easy thing to make CGI.
Imschwaller and I, in 1979, did this piece called Sunstone. And in Sunstone, there's an 18 said, hey, why don't we be the first people in the world to make a movie with a computer and nothing else? Now, notice I didn't say 3D. I just said movie. And we would have been satisfied with anything. A 2D in-between movie would have counted. Certainly, we didn't care. It'd be a movie. We had to learn what making a movie the old-fashioned way meant. And we had these great teachers right there on the campus with us from the old school. There was about 100 of them. And there were animators and background artists and photographers and logistic checkers and, so we learned that, the really hard part of animated movie was logistics. It was a secret that nobody wants to hear, but it's our secret of success was that we mastered the fact that logistics was a secret of animation by watching these old timers and seeing what their problems were. And we tried to, Ed wrote a tween program to try to get them, seduce them into using the computer. It was too hard for them. They just couldn't figure it out. It was too hard for us. That's when we discovered that 2D was harder than 3D because there's no coherence between front and back and stuff like that. It finally dawned on us that 2D wasn't the path because we saw how much trouble the old-time animators had with it. But Lance came in as his response to this let's make a movie idea with this script, this treatment for the works, starring ipso facto. I'll never forget what a great name that was. It was just a treatment, just a few pages, but it was a clever idea. And he and Dick London set to work doing stills to show off the ant and, the robot character. And it was beautiful, really beautiful. It kind of gave you a hint that, man, if we could just do this 3D stuff, it'd just blow people's socks off. It just took forever and a day to do it. Starting from zero, there were no systems at all in place.
Creating a 3D movie required a lot of work and a system that hadn't even been developed yet, so this meant new tools had to be created, like Bebop.
Bebop allowed animators to animate a character with just a wireframe view and a joystick.
Bebop is a three-dimensional animation system created by Garland Stern at New York Institute of Technology. The system allows creation and preview of animated 3D figures displayed in skeleton, line drawing form.
It was sort of named by Lance Williams. Originally, he had the idea of a two-part, program, bop and rebop, because of 60s jazz. But bop stood for body operator program or body operator position or something like that. And rebop was like, render that. So I like to think of, those bad old days as the days of easy victories. That got used for a bunch of stuff. I think most notable user there was Rebecca Allen, who did work with Twyla Tharp. We had a sort of rotoscoping system where you could use a half-silvered mirror to look at a video image and see through to the line drawing system, so you could position the line drawing model to match the position of the video image.
And this is pretty advanced for the time, I have to say. A lot of effort put in for this wire stuff. Wow, it looks almost realistic. It looks advanced for today.
Rebecca Allen, the artist who animated that dancing figure, thinks computers are too important to be left solely to scientists.
You need to have people, from psychology and education and art and music able to work on these machines and help define the machine's personality.
One day we got a call from George Lucas.
Oh. Yeah, I've seen this a million times. I always think it's kind of cool. George Lucas was watching them. He was like, oh boy, this computer stuff. He knew. He was like, you know what? All you guys who do all this artwork, I want you to come in here and can you ruin... Okay, I know it wasn't them who did it, but can you come and ruin it with the special editions? Can you come ruin my work with my special editions? It's my decision, but can I learn CGI? Because one day I want to use it for everything. But George, will it ruin your work? Forget it, I want to use it for everything, and whether or not the films are good or bad, does not matter. I have to say, whatever, go, make it CGI, make it everything. The ruination is about to happen. Still, I did think at the time he was a more ambitious person, but still, it kind of ruined a lot of stuff.
When Ralph Guggenheim came in the door and said, I got this call from Lucasfilm, he said, don't say another word, close the door, be very careful with this information. Ed and I immediately drove off the campus to a typewriter rental shop, rented a typewriter so we wouldn't use anything electronic, and spent a day in Ed's garage in Glen Cove, I think the town was, crafting a letter to Lucasfilm saying, we're interested. But we didn't use the word cushy, but the idea of the letter was, we have such a cushy setup here that we don't want to go downhill from here. Please send somebody out to see what we're used to. But it's got to be secret. All right, so one day, the real estate guy and Richard Edlund, the head of special effects at Lucasfilm, show up. Richard is wearing this giant Star Wars belt buckle. And so we just kind of bit our teeth and gave him the demos, but that was the beginning. And then the next thing was Ed and I went out to visit Lucasfilm, and it happened.
When the call came, I honestly felt conflicted. It's one of those things that I always look back on, and because Alex had spent a lot of money and time and had bet on us delivering, and we had a remarkable group of people there, and we were making major advances, and but I knew that we would never get to our goal of making the film. So when George made the offer, then I took it, and it was this terrible blow to Alex, and he got sick the next day. He was very sick, like the trauma sickness that happens.
Alvy Ray Smith heads up the computer graphics research for Lucasfilm. We asked him when we could expect a feature-length computer-animated cartoon.
Full-blown character animation, three-dimensional motion blur, such as Andre and Wally-B, is probably not cost-effective yet. because the machines are still a little bit too slow, even the big machines. But some compromise between standard two-dimensional conventional animation and full-blown three-dimensional animation is probably conceivable in the next couple of years.
The next piece of animation I'm going to show you has haunted me for almost 20 years now. It's evidence of our attempt at NYT to make the first computer-animated feature film. I'd like to thank New York Institute of Technology for pioneering in this area, for making this work possible. I'd like to apologize to them and to my audience today, and to Ned Green in particular, that I have only a half-inch dub of this animation.
2,000 years after the end of the world, one human being holds the key to a robot planet gone mad. Real-life science fiction brings science fiction to life. Some of the most astonishing images ever recorded on film. Science fiction, computer animation, the works.
Well, it was very much his baby, and he always loved science fiction, and he had a tremendous imagination. He's one of the few people that could really sort of bridge art and science, you know, like have both those parts of his brain be strong, you know, and he always had a passion for science fiction. I think it kind of merged the two, and always, I think, loved computer graphics for that very reason. You know, it became an ideal way to express, you know, using technology for images. And he talked about imaging brainwaves sort of later on. But anyway, the works comes about, and he had always wanted to make movies with this. I mean, he was one of the first people to imagine that computers could become video and image-making tools. Like, he was one of the first to sort of foresee that possibility.
In Lance's first treatment for the works, humanity had been almost wiped out by the military computer the story was named after. With Earth taken over by robots, what remains of humanity lives on asteroids.
That is, until Beeper Raxus, who was later replaced with his friend T-Square, is recruited by ipso facto, a representative of the Lunar Auto-Diplomatic Buffoon Corps, a group dedicated to facilitating peace between robots and humans.
Together, T-Square and Ipso venture to Earth, battle robots, and rescue all of humanity's knowledge from the works.
But how they were going to tell this story was a bit of a head-scratcher.
I did some designs for robots. I read Lance's script, so I knew what the deal was, and I started to try to develop some characters. I was the first human being to receive a paycheck as a production designer for CGI. That's my brag, and I'm sticking with it. We had used sort of the Pixar model of being smart about what kind of characters we could use and what kind of animation we could realistically afford to do. I was working on one of the paint stations late at night. Pretty much you could go there 24 hours a day and just walk in and sit down at a machine and do something for however you wanted, and then when you were done, you'd get up and go away. You didn't punch a clock or anything like that. You could come and go as you pleased. So it was very relaxed, and I would say practical, that people were so motivated by the environment and the other people in it and the equipment we had access to that you'd voluntarily go to work. Which is something that I haven't run into a whole lot of times in my career. So if anybody could start a character or a machine, Dick London was the one who modeled the works title sequence. You could almost just let that play and just stare at it for like 5 minutes. There's enough there that it would hold your interest for that long. I think it's one of the best things that the lab ever turned out, and it was one of the earlier things. It was already there when I came, and that was in '80. Yeah, I think Dick must have finished that and then decided, well, what else can I do that's impossible?
All the letters here are so very intricate. I couldn't even imagine working on something like this at the time. All the effort and all the time, and you didn't have to be on a crunch either. It's crazy. Before I continue, I'm going to look at a couple things to just see what time it is. It's 10. Okay. Keep going through it.
Yeah, well, I was really dedicated, working 7 days a week, and, no holidays. Yeah, I had no social life, and just get really, just trying to get this project going. He was like at his computer, poring over numbers, and putting every single rivet that a giant ant robot needed in their rightful place. I mean, his ant was a huge achievement at the time. It was almost, I think he knew that he was committing history by doing it, and doing it so thoroughly. He really advanced the possibilities of the art form in terms of people understanding just how powerful it was going to become. Right, the ant was for the works. I developed that. I developed the walk, how it could walk. People, make up ants, but they can't make them walk. I think as a story, just the outline of it was pretty good, and it would make a good family film. The whole idea of the robots basically repopulating the Earth with themselves, I thought was kind of a cool conceit, and obviously it gave us the opportunity to have an all-robot cast, which was necessary because we only had geometric primitives to work with. There were very few, if any, other human characters except T-Square. I like T-Square, and ipso facto, he was kind of like an intellectual Jiminy Cricket.
So there's two things I did at the lab that I think I can say I invented, which is the reflection mapping, and also what's currently used in pretty much all Hollywood films, match move, which is a camera tracking to combine live action and computer animation with a free-moving camera. The only human star of the works, there's some test footage of her, and I kind of was able to animate different parts of her face independently and by doing compositing, and that's what sort of led me to do the reflection mapping, because one time or another you're going to have to interface live action with computer graphics, and it all looked horribly plastic, and you had to match the lights. It was pretty bad what we had to work with there.
The bomb? What happened?
You are on board the bomb, which, however, is not a very good bomb, but a spaceship from the moon. I am a diplomatic robot, an expert on human beings, also of lunar manufacture.
Not a bomb.
Not a bomb, but in a manner of speaking, I could have been. Consider it a drill.
Not a bomb. Well, who and what are you? You're sort of funny looking.
Thank you. I am formerly a member of the Lunar Auto-Diplomatic Buffoon Corps. My ridiculous appearance is designed to allay suspicion and forestall hostility.
Bill designed a lot of the robots that I built. He did the actual drawings, and then I would turn them into 3D models.
This guy's cool. He's a cool film composer. Super cool.
But we hung out a lot because we both were really into music, and he's a very entertaining guy. There's a conference called SIGGRAPH, which is the
very famous thing. It's cool. I'm sure he says that you could know the people at the time. I'm sure you could, because, yeah, not that many people in 81 were that into computers.
the big international computer graphics conference, right? I went to it in 1980, pretty sure. It was in Seattle. It was pretty small then. Basically, you could kind of know everybody who was doing computer animation in 1980. There were not that many people. So it was a nice place to go, and you saw what everybody was up to. And Lance Williams gave a talk there about, I think it was really about the human visual system and what you could learn from that in terms of computer graphics. So I went up to Lance and I said, well, I know you work at New York Tech, and it's just, not that far, honestly, from where I was in Long Island. And I said, could I ever come by and see the lab, see what you guys are doing? I didn't quite realize that they had just lost a whole bunch of people when George Lucas hired away like Ed Catmull and Alvy Ray Smith to go work for him in California. So they had suddenly had this brain drain kind of at New York Tech, and they were actually looking for people. They need all these 3D models of robots. The idea of the works is there's a planet where everything is a robot. That made it easy to animate with the technology of the time, where it wasn't really possible to animate anything that would look like hair or skin, but you could do metal. We had that ability. They just say, okay, we need this robot. Someone would give me a drawing of it, and I would go off and do it. And I was paid on a piecemeal basis, like, this robot, how much do you think it's going to cost? And I'd say, oh, I can do that for $500.
$500 for this. Wow.
And I was very fast, so it ended up being very lucrative for me. And it was good for them because they started, accumulating models that they could animate.
When I interviewed, I was told about the Works project, and I was basically hired for the Works. Well, I suspect that Alex was using the Works as a vehicle to hire people into the computer graphics lab. So initially, in the early years of the Works project, I think I was more optimistic that we were going to be successful making the project. But as the years went on, let's say we're talking 82, 83, 84. By then, I and many others on the Works project became disillusioned that, it really wasn't happening, that we didn't have the organizational structure to get the project done.
I feel a little bit bad because I'm like, the belief, and they didn't. In the end, they never really got this one to get made. But I also want to say, maybe they shouldn't have been so down on themselves. Maybe they could have done something with the Works. You don't have to make it like an hour-long movie. You got good ideas there. Make something with it. You didn't have to make it like an hour-long film. Make something. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you can't come up with something at the time, make it. They were trying to do something. It didn't work with the technology. It was expensive. They had the opportunity. I would say it didn't have to look amazing. It was an idea. I wish they made it be a very interesting film. You can still make the film today, but they genuinely were trying to make something genuinely interesting. And they shouldn't put them so much pressure on themselves. It was cool.
Lance was really not the right person to be directing this.
Well, I need to make it clear to you that it was intended to be a feature film. The likelihood that was going to happen, however, was not good. And I think that's contributed to that we're in this together mentality, because it was possible in the heart. In the head, not so much. When we sat down and looked at all of the clips that had been made to date, which were usable and didn't stop halfway through because the results weren't working out, maybe 7 minutes. Oftentimes they didn't come out for some reason. Like if you're rendering a scene and the computer drops a frame or two, you'll see it in the playback. There'll be a jump, and everybody will go, oh, God, because you have to do it over again. In some cases, things had to be done 3 and 4 times. So we were moving along pretty well for a group of maybe, 6 to 8 people at any given time, until Ned Green, in his Infinite Evil, did a calculation based on the scenes that we were able to generate so far, and the computing power that we had available, and it determined that in order to render the works, it would take 7 years.
Now it'll probably be very easy with the computers they have. I'm sure he was right, but you can always defy the odds. I feel like every time a person says that, I'm like, there's always a chance to defy the odds. And maybe you couldn't, but there's always a chance.
We did what we could, and we didn't do the parts we couldn't do, and and that's basically how the works was put together. It's like, we'll get to this, we know we'll solve it, and the hope was always, we'll work on the things we can do. And meanwhile, there are people writing software. We had software engineers who were just doing software, solving problems. And hopefully the software would keep up with the movie production in some way, right? But at a certain point, we realized that it wasn't actually happening. It was reality settling into a place where reality was not one of our focuses. You walk into that building and you leave reality outside. It wasn't that subtle. Basically, the word went out, okay, we're stopping. Because all of us were in our way working on it. I was building models, and people were, sometimes I was animating them, sometimes other people were animating them. People were, working on all these aspects. There's one human character, so they're working on how to make her work, basically by mapping a human face into a spacesuit. There are all these little projects going on that were part of the works, and when word came down, okay, we're going to step back. It did also kind of mean like we had to, the whole place sort of had to say, well, okay, so what's our reason for being now? The place kind of lost its whatever focus it had, I'd say.
Oh, that's kind of sad, because maybe just go back to experimenting with little things then. If you can't get what you want out of it, then make something you can do with your team. All the hard work can go to something else then. If they don't want to support it, then make something you can do with them. Do something special. You have something special that no one else had at the time. I'm sure you could have come up with something. You got models, you got sheets, you got all this stuff. I'm being very positive. I'm being very hopeful. But I swear, with all this effort, all this work and ability, you got the infinite possibilities for anything. I wish they didn't put themselves down so much.
At that point. And new people were brought on to just maybe turn it into more of a commercial facility where, we got to go out and find clients, because our big project, that's not happening.
Ultimately, he felt like it was his baby, because the technology fundamentally isn't there, and he sort of fantasized that it will be.
And you know what? I think also, Lance, if he was still here, I would be like, dude, you're a very genius person. If they aren't going to let you do it, find a different way. If they're going to be so hard on you and they can't get the money, or it's going to take 7 years for it, make something little with these characters. Why does it have to be so elaborate with it? It's still good. I understand the heartbreak. But you have the ability that no one else has. You got science fiction ideas. Go to a company who will listen and will put the money. Get the 7 years. Forget. I'm not saying the other word. But you had the ability, dude. Could have done anything.
And it's very easy to get excited about it. And, kind of get caught up in that energy. So he was always very disappointed that it never happened. And I think there was at one point somebody did a joke. Paul made a joke. He made a bunch of T-shirts that said "Works too."
I don't know. I don't think the audience was really ready for it. It's interesting. It's like when Tron came out, and everybody made a big deal about Tron being the first computer-generated movie. It actually wasn't. I just only like 6 minutes or something of hard CG in the whole thing.
I think the word for that kind of stuff used to be neat. This is neat stuff. Tron is a whole lot of fun that simply dazzles, and in the process, it also expands our notion of computers and the people who work with them and create them. And that this is a Walt Disney production is the nicest surprise of all, because before Tron, Disney films of late have been pathetic, unworthy of the Disney name.
Now they are. Feel like that's really happening now, Siskel. You be, I don't want to say that word. Can I say rolling? I was going to say rolling in his grave. But that's really bad. That's really mean to say. But he would definitely hate the movie industry now. Oh, God. But still, it was what it is, and at the time, I think people were so hard on Disney when it really wasn't that bad.
With Tron, though, Disney instantly is up to date, a truly exciting movie.
I love this movie.
It was still so new that the audience was like, that's interesting. And then they went on to something else. It didn't catch the audience the way Toy Story did. Well, all the other little companies like Pacific Data Images and Magi and everything were so focused on improving the software. Pixar put together a killer story department. They got people that had done fantastic work for like Tim Burton and for a bunch of these other companies, and they focused on the story. And like one CG guy said to me, he says the best thing about Toy Story was that it was the first CG film where I didn't care about that I was watching a CG film. I just want to know what happens to Woody and Buzz. And he goes, and that's victory. I think the works would have been interesting.
It would have been interesting. But I want to also say, I like the advancement of technology. I feel like story and the advancement of technology is lacking now. I mean, we've advanced, I think, to the point where it's really advanced with the Spider-Verse movies and stuff. But, like, I don't know. I just feel very weird with Pixar now. It just feels like it's not as good.
But I think it's to the scientific community and the movie community. I think it's interesting, but to the general public, it's kind of like
he made the effort to buy the script. He owns it, so I think he felt like it was his, and he wanted to own it, and he bought it. He has a contract that he, finalized, I think, 30 years after the fact, just because he wanted to make sure that it was his. No one else made it, so I think he would love to have made it. Sure, why not? But it's such a massive project. I think it would have been hard, and I imagine people would want to edit it into something else.
We had a couple of locations modeled, and maybe 2 dozen characters modeled. 3DV is my attempt to pick up the pieces and knit them into something watchable.
Hello, humans! This is what you've been waiting for!
DynaDigiDataVac, an entertainment subcompany of DynaDigiDataVac, an entertainment subcompany of Pan Transcorp presents 3DV.
Hello, I'm Dot Matrix. What you are about to see will change your indoor life forever.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. I'm user-friendly, and this is 3DV, the first fully automated, computer-controlled, interactive, all-robot network programming system.
Well, DynaDigiDataVac was a favorite futuristic name that Lance cherished. He would use it from time to time on parts of the project. And 3DV is 3Ds, partially referring to 3D animation and partially referring to digit data wag. And we tried using video of just my mouth for user-friendly, and all the rest of him was CGI. In order to do his mouth, I had to be perfectly still, like some straps around my neck and stuff, until I was completely immobilized, lashed to this easel. I did some lines for that.
3DV, the first fully automated, computer-controlled, interactive, all-robot network programming system.
We called it the clutch cargo effect.
I hear it's fabulous.
Our big pitch. Can you believe nobody bought it?
Well, even if we didn't make it, a lot of great people got to see us.
Annabelle Yankel, and they were guests.
The Super Mario Brothers movie people. And, you know, it kind of makes me think they would create Max Headroom. They're going to say that. I'm sorry I'm spoiling the video, but it's still good. They're still doing a better job than me. I'm just a guy with a basic webcam video who works at home. Not trying to, but like, I'm not saying anything about Home Depot, but like, I work at Home Depot. I don't really have anything like these people are, but like, there's just like more of a thing there. And I'm going to say this, Max Headroom's going to probably reach the status more. My dad plays the Max Headroom video way more than any of this he's ever heard of.
On one of the tours, they were shown the intro with User and Don. Apparently they liked it so much, they figured out how to make a Canadian put some rubber stuff on his head and do the same thing.
Did you say user abuser? Tell him to get back in the knife box. He's too sharp by half, that one. I can scratch his terminals out.
We had an in or two to George Lucas, and actually I showed him 3DV, and he was grumpy. I had the same reaction from Jim Henson.
Not their best moments. Ha! So much for, what's his name? I'll say that. Jim Henson can be whatever angry he wants, because he actually did a lot of stuff puppetry. George, you have no way meaning to be grumpy about the whole thing. Because you, of all people, have loved CGI. Ha! I don't know anyone else who loves CGI more. Does the Star Wars franchise just unfamiliar with CGI? Is it unfamiliar? I don't think it is. Am I insane?
It seemed like these guys were like resentful that we got to use computers to do all this stuff, and they had to physically carve it out of foam and paint eyeballs and, you know, actually make these things come to life. And all we had to do was type stuff into the computer in there. It was a fairly common situation that people would turn up on a tour to be shown the lab and whatever kind of recent footage we were doing, or paintings that Paul Zander was making. Probably Chuck Jones was pretty much. Chuck Jones and Seamus Culhane were probably the peak of the mountain for a lot of us. And Mr. Jones, Chuck, well, looked at what we were doing, and he was surprisingly sublime about it. He thought...
Win-win for Chuck Jones. Generally a nice person, compared to all the other people. Like Lucas and Jim Henson are that not one of their best moments, I have to say, from what I'm hearing. Very innovative people, but like,
that this was the way that things would have to go, and that there was no reason why you couldn't make funny cartoons using computers. And he looked at the interpolation station that the 2D guys had, and he saw the potential in that. Although he did convince us fairly easily that we wouldn't probably get real far have like the kind of flexibility we would want until we could do squash and stretch. And I'm sure he was absolutely right about that. So then there was Laurie Anderson, who is
language is a virus. Da 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 da. I love that song. I had to learn about her in digital music class, electronic music class. It was great. And everybody on the island say, "Look at me! Look at me! Look at me!"
sort of a conceptualist and musician and actor and a lot of stuff. Have you seen one of the pictures of her with a light bulb in her mouth? I was there. It was weird. It was really bright. I wish you could only keep it in for a minute or two before it get too hot.
I don't know, maybe a year into my doing this, someone realized that, well, you're also a musician. Well, we want to start a digital audio, lab. They actually had some equipment there. I think they had a synclavier, which is this very expensive, amazing early digital synthesizer. Again, it was the kind of place where money was no object, and there was that kind of. They were doing the same thing with the audio. They're saying, what would you need to start a state-of-the-art digital audio facility? And the people who ran the lab felt that stuff wasn't happening fast enough in digital audio, and they wanted, that we're making this movie, maybe we could have some sound effects and music coming out of our an audio facility to help with the movie. So then I kind of started wearing that hat too.
Crazy. It's like super Disney. It's like music at Wonders of Life. So advanced.
Around that same time, they twisted my arm to going on salary. So I actually then did have an actual job. I was the director of the digital audio facility, but with the understanding that I might leave. So Rebecca was doing also her own art projects with the resources of the lab, and I did music for some of those, like a dance piece, a computerized dance piece she did, I think, called Step.
This is so cool.
And we actually both worked together on a fully choreographed human dance performance that was like featured animation she did at the lab and music that I had done called RAB, because the R for Rebecca R for Renier, Patrice Renier was the choreographer, and A for Rebecca Allen, and B for Carter Burwell. And anyway, so she was kind of doing, it was great. She was, if she hadn't done that, a lot of like what we did at the lab would kind of just be ephemera and just disappear. But these pieces that she did, kind of like Steps, I think, is in the collection of some museums. And if, thanks to her doing that, we actually got stuff done and finished and out the door that has some, value down the road, which is nice. It was not that well directed, I have to say. Like, and you'll probably
get out of here. Very well directed. It's art. You created something. You put it out there. Be happy you created something.
We hear this from other people. Everybody sort of did their own, whatever is interesting to them personally, but the whole idea of directing all these cats, into a focused result was challenging. The lab was starting a branch in Tokyo. They had basically sold a computer graphics to
Japanese people, and the computers in the 80s. Only magic could appear at that time. I can't even imagine. They make 83 things look insane. I'm not trying to say that, they just have a touch to things that make things great. There's something about the 80s that's just, for Japanese stuff, is really cool. Not just saying the 80s was cool. The 80s was cool in general. But that was really an awesome time. 70s and 80s, I like a lot more stuff than 90s is cool too, but just different.
To an animation company in Tokyo. And they were sending people over occasionally to train the Japanese animators on how to use things. And I just really wanted to go to Japan out of just general.
So do I, dude. So do I.
Interest, and I kept pushing the management to send me over. They were working on a movie in Japan called Lensman.
Now, any Kenny Lauderdale fans out here who are big fans of him, he talked about Lensman. Lensman is one of those things that also is part of those eras of time, where they would just take a copyrighted source material, and whether the estate that the source material came from liked it or not, they would make an animation of it. Does that mean... Because this thing had a lot of copyright problems, and is never really gotten released in America for that reason. It was in a lot of hot water because it was not really licensed with it. Early science fiction. Way before Star Wars. And one of those estate things, kind of like how the LeBlanc estate does not like Lupin for a long time. So they'd call him Wolf the Third.
And I said, well, I could, I threw out some ideas of things that I could do to help them with the movie in Tokyo. And one of the things they had to do was build these sort of cities, galactic cities. And I said, well, that's great, because I know how to grow things in the computer. I've been growing trees, and I've been growing mountains, and I could grow a city. I could have it grow in the same way that I grow these organic things. Before I went to Tokyo, I went to Manchester, England to record an album. I was there for a month. Before I went to Manchester, a friend had asked me, would you ever be interested in doing music for a movie? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? So that friend introduced me to the Coen brothers, and they were working on their first film, Blood Simple.
Oh, this is a very cool movie. Now, it's a very adult movie, what I'm talking about here. Very suspenseful, very adult. Not something compared to... They would work on Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, for many people who know the Coen brothers. Not like that. Very dark movie. And I kind of find it funny because the cinematographer for this film, Barry Sonnenfeld, would end up doing stuff like Addams Family and Men in Black. It's very interesting. His cinematography is really good. Good cinematography. Good suspense. Good intensity. It's a very intense movie, and also the country-esque theme to it. It's very unique.
I gave them some ideas, musical ideas, some of which I recorded at the lab because they had the equipment, and didn't hear anything back from them. Went to Manchester, recorded this album, and while I was in Manchester, Joel and Ethan Coen called me, and they said, I think we're going to go with you for the music for a movie, so when can we record? And I said, well, I'm in England, but I'll be back next week. But then I have to leave for Tokyo in a month, so can we do it in there? Said, yeah, sure. About a year later, Blood Simple came out, and then people started calling me to see if I would do music for movies, and which is nothing I had ever planned to do. Tony Perkins called me, wanted me to do the music for Psycho 3 because he'd liked Blood Simple and he liked the music. So I went to LA, did that. People at the lab at that point were starting to getting very, very frustrated with me because I was really disappearing so much. So when I came back, they really were sort of like, well, are you really going to work for us anymore, or you just do your own things? And I just said, I'm not going to work for you anymore, honestly. It's, I'm doing other things, and I don't want to lie to you. I'm never going to just be the employee that you want. And so that was basically the end of my time there. It probably was about like 84, 85 at that point.
I ended up involved with Master's Year. Was like Dr. Schur saw that I was doing a variety of creative things and kind of thinking up new stuff. And it was kind of weird because I wasn't that 100%. There was other 3D things that I was trying to develop. Like I said before, they were just scattered, everybody was doing different things, and I don't know if it was a leadership problem or what, that there wasn't any like directive, but in the case of Master's Year, there was.
Splendid, marvelous, a spectacular success. Our situation reversal machine has transformed Rodney into a building in which our friends Dino and Glick have taken up residence. That rodent who once made his home in our building is now himself a home to our creatures, and quite a cozy one at that. They seem quite comfortable here in the 33rd dimension. Why, they even have a fireplace and what appears to be a faceless life form for a pet.
Very trippy.
Well then, let the experiment continue.
Basically, I wanted to come up with a 22-minute format. At the time, there was this company, Vestron. Dr. Schur eventually did set up a meeting where I showed Master's Year to one of the top executives at Vestron, who came down to the video center to look at it. Dr. Schur had seen Master's Year many times, and I don't think he was as excited about it as he was about some of the 3D stuff that we were doing. So, I don't know, it was less than half.
Well, Schur can screw himself. He was like, whatever. Wait, is that the same guy, Alex? Am I thinking the same guy, right? The original guy? Not the son? I just was thinking, because I like the acid trip vibe of this whole thing.
Way through watching Master's Year with this executive, and Dr. Schur goes, "Oh, but you should see some of the 3D stuff we're doing." I just felt like, oh shit, this is that's not how you're gonna get this guy excited about this project if you're saying we do other stuff that's better. So, but that was almost like classic Dr. Schur. It was like, he's a really nice guy, but that was kind of a blunder. And I don't know if that was really what made the deal not go through, but it just never went anywhere. And then then it kept going that way. Like Dr. Schur kept on asking me to sort through all this different test animation footage and try to cobble together something cool out of it. And that was when I started thinking about leaving, because I just felt like they were grasping at straws, and also they were having trouble meeting the payroll of just paying people. So they were running out of money. There's just a lot of difficulties going on. I thought, okay, well let's see if I can model a Gumby. And so I actually got in touch with the Gumby creator, Art Clokey, and got his specifications weren't anything fancy. He just, I think, sent me a Xerox of a flat drawing of a Gumby character. And so I modeled it. I even met with Art Clokey at NYIT when he happened to be on the East Coast.
As the Yellow Submarine became the fantasia of the 60s and 70s, so does it become the mandate of Strawberry Fields to do so for the 90s. What you're about to see is a work in progress titled Strawberry Fields, from the Beatles song of the same name. It's a feature-length pop musical fantasy rendered in state-of-the-art 2D and 3D computer animation.
I was invited to join the team that were trying to develop this Yellow Submarine Part 2
all of it's very impressive.
Strawberry Fields, I think they were going to call it. I think Al Brodax was supposedly going to be the producer.
And so it seemed like it was a legit project. It was like TD, supposed to be 2D and 3D. I guess I was a 3D person, one person. And then, yeah, they hired these guys from Sheridan College in Canada to come down, the Frostbacks, we call them.
And like they brought in this guy, I don't know where they found him. Didn't really get along with him that well, this fellow David Lubell. I have to say, I've kind of wondered, like, well, why are they bringing in this outsider to direct the movie? He doesn't, maybe that was by design. Maybe they wanted somebody that was different from the lab culture or something. I don't know. I think he was spending a lot of time just trying to figure out, like, what it was we could do, like, I think there was a lot of time kind of wasted because, it was in development. And so there was just like a lot of undefined elements going on.
As a kid, I had a 8mm movie camera with a stop motion ability, so I would do little animations of my own. I was maybe 12, 13, 14 years old, 15. I saw a show on television in New York called Hollywood on the Hudson, and it talked about all this animation for advertising in Manhattan. And they showed one of these guys' name was Fred McGubgub. I saw his stuff on TV, and it was a lot like mine. So my mom, and I was a kid then, my mom said, why don't you call him up and, just tell him you want to show him your stuff. So I looked in the Manhattan directory for McGubgub. There was one. And so I said, this got to be him. And so I called him, and he said, sure, come on in. And we became friends over the year or two that I would show him. I would go into New York and show him the movies that I was doing. And then he got me some freelance, and then he hooked up with Al Brodax around the time that Brodax, who was the executive producer of Yellow Submarine, he had just finished that. And so he brought me to Brodax, and we started on a show called Make-A-Wish. We did some animated segments to that. And then that turned into a show called Animals, Animals, Animals. And that went for 10 years. And we would do short animations for that. But then Brodax got hooked up with the New York Institute of Technology, and they talked about making this movie Strawberry Fields using Beatle music, but not the Beatles version. And so I was really excited about doing it until it turned into a nightmare. My official title was art director, even though I felt I was the director, because I was the only one there who came there every day and worked with all these people. They were like 30 or 40 people at one time working on this movie. And I actually drew like 95% of that storyboard. It took months and months. Some people from the West Coast.
That's just poor management in general. They should have gotten alright, then elect him to be it. If not, then do something with it.
Wrote the script. And I remember Brodax saying, an 88-minute movie should be about 88 pages, about a minute per page. And it was 300 pages, and it was a horrible story, and that was it. Vestron had these groups. They hired, like Cheap Trick to do Magical Mystery Tour, and, big name rock and roll bands doing Beatle music.
taxman.
Michelle, my belle.
That was where the money was going to come from, however that works, I didn't really pay attention to that, but they had big name money, and also Brodax came out of Yellow Submarine. So whatever happened with Yellow Submarine, they were maybe thinking, all right, we can do this Strawberry Fields, will be another Yellow Submarine kind of a thing, and they'll make money. And so Brodax was trying to make this movie happen, using their facility. I would go to the Westbury every day. They put me up in a place in East Islip where they had doctors' residences. Brodax hired Lowenheim, Al Lowenheim, to take care of that 2D, some of the 2D. And they paid good money for that, but it wasn't liked. So, I just said, what are they going to do? They never got the 3D characters to work. They said, go get 2D animators when they were first saying, oh, that's how we'll do it. We'll do 2D animation. So I got these Sheridan College, that was the name of it, in Canada. I went there and I spent a day looking at everybody's animation, and I think I hired like 10 people. And I didn't hire them. I said, these people we should bring down, and they did. They brought them down, and we formed like 10 guys doing animation, 2D, drawn on paper, I remember, and then they would scan it in and paint it with the computer. And it was supposed to be a 2-year project, and it was 4.5 years. And after that much time and seeing what was happening with everything, I just knew it wasn't going to be finished there. They weren't going to be able to do it, and I was sick of it. And so I got out. I have to say, we did some really nice stuff, some pretty cool stuff.
It isn't hard to tell that Strawberry Fields didn't work out. With a lawsuit between Beatles catalog owner ITC and movie distributor Vestron about music rights and not being satisfied with the lab's output, Strawberry Fields would fizzle out.
After 7 years of development, Strawberry Fields would shut down with the lab in 1992.
Any last words?
Bye.
The honest truth about it at NYIT was that, like a lot of companies that fail or products that fail, it's when they don't focus on what they do best and they try to do too many things, then they just waste resources and die.
I'm coming back on the companies, I'm not sure. I don't know how I'm supposed to take. Thomas? Thomas, back up. Rich, send it. It's hard, whatever it is. That's so cool. I want my vacation. I want my water.
What could have been?
The lab really had some major breakthroughs on digital paint, painting and surfacing, which not only worked for cartoons, but later on was fundamental to the development of things like RenderMan and all, which later used in visual effects. So all the stuff that was, like in the Terminator movies and things and Star Wars and stuff, all had that basis. The thing about computer graphics at that time was a lot of the people involved on the technical end had that sort of spirit of the research lab. Early CGI, when they had these early SIGGRAPH meetings and those things, everybody shared. Like one CG guy told me, named Jim Hill, and he said 80% of what we got here is flying bricks. Meaning that the computer thing comes up and it's like, Ooh. You know, like that, like, ooh. You know, but then he says there's always one new thing. There's somebody did something new. And that was, and just that one thing was enough for the whole industry to take a step forward. And the stuff that was figured out at New York Tech, you know, I think Alvy said something about once we actually started a list of the breakthroughs we made, we covered like several pages.
And I was keeping my eye on graphics, and everybody was making pie charts and bar charts, and that was computer graphics. It was completely boring and ridiculous. And I saw the cover of Byte magazine. You had a little guy named Ipso Facto climbing out of Dick London's hand. And I'm like, holy shit, I gotta go to this place. These guys are doing exactly what they should be doing with computer graphics. Basically, anybody, who's who of everybody in computer graphics went through those doors at some point or another. It's sort of like the history of computer graphics is in many ways encapsulated at NYT. Of course, Alex thought of himself as maybe the next Walt Disney. He was just ahead of his time, basically. We weren't ready for that. Technology wasn't ready for that. But he was ambitious and he was kind of a visionary, so I think he deserves a lot of
Well, we'll never be ready. No one will ever be ready for stuff like this. You just got to keep pushing it.
credit for what he did. And then that just became a magnet for a lot of really amazing people who came to do a short stint there, or came for summer internships, or came to work there for a while.
What we're seeing in a laboratory like this is literally primitive beginnings.
I thank you all and remind you that the big screen is behind the eyes.
Thanks for taking a stroll down memory lane with us.
It's been a long time since we've been able to give the grand tour.
That's pretty awesome, I have to say. Dude was a genius. This is a pretty good documentary. I'm sorry, guys, if I didn't have much to say right now, or this whole video, but I tried my best to have enough in there, and I hope you guys enjoy it. It's going to be a longer one. I don't know if I'll release it after this, but here is everything, and I hope you enjoyed me talking about something that I didn't really have a chance to do, and I am peaking the mic really badly. I can tell it's going up. But I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I hope you are enjoying the video, and I'll keep making more of videos that I like.